Welcome to our YouTube channel. In this video, we comparing Alaska and Yukon. We will explore the unique features and attractions of these two northern territories. From the stunning glaciers of Alaska to the rugged wilderness of Yukon, each destination offers its own charm and beauty. Join us as we delve into the differences between these two incredible regions, and discover which one might be the perfect adventure for you. Stay tuned for an exciting journey through Alaska and Yukon. First, let's have a quick comparison. Alaska is much larger and has more population than Yukon. The Northwest Territories and Alaska both have many national parks. Although both has roads that link up to the Arctic Ocean. And Alaska has more wildlife and greater range of things to do when you visit than the Yukon territories. Why Alaska and the Yukon is the road trip of a lifetime? Well, these places are remote, wild and vast. The ratio of land per human is 240 square kilometers, 93 square miles, per person in Alaska and 13 square kilometers per person in the much smaller Yukon territory. The food is surprisingly good. And the stories are the stuff of legends. Alaska and the Northwest Territories are great places to discover the Arctic, and there are some reasons to choose one above the other. Going to explore the northern parts of North America? Which should one visit, the United States Alaska, or the Canadian territories? This video will limit itself to comparing Alaska with the Canadian territory of the Northwest Territories. The northern end of North America is full of wildlife and is an endless untamed wilderness. It is much more than just a frozen wasteland and offers the adventure of a lifetime. Alaska is famous as the largest and wildest state in the United States and borders the Canadian province of British Columbia and the Yukon Territory. The Northwest Territories are very remote, but they are accessible by car. Both Alaska and the Northwest Territories offer Arctic adventures, but they are also very different from each other. It is much larger and more populous. It has some of the remotest territories on the North American continent. While Alaska is famously sparsely populated, it is still far more populated than any other territory north of the 60th parallel in North America. In fact, it has more than 4 times more than the Canadian territories' populations of the Northwest Territories, Yukon, Nunavut, as well as Greenland. Alaska's size is 663,268 square miles, that is about 1,717,856 square kilometers. With its population of 736,000. And its capital is Juneau. With largest city Anchorage. On the other hand, the Northwest Territories is one of the 3 Arctic territories of Canada. Despite its size, it has a population of less than 50,000. Around 20,000 of the population lives in the capital and only city, Yellowknife. While the Northern Western Territories is smaller than Alaska, it is still almost twice the size of Texas. With square per miles of 1,144,000 square kilometers. And its population is 45,500. Its capital and largest city is Yellowknife. Alaska and the Northwest Territories both have many national parks. It is home to over half the federally owned public land with vast national forests, national parks, and wildlife refuges. The national parks of Alaska include Denali National Park, Kenai Fjords National Park, Wrangell Street, Elias National Park, Glacier Bay National Park, Katmai National Park, Lake Clark National Park, Gates of the Arctic National Park, and Bering Land Bridge National Preserve. The Northwest Territories is home to 6 Canadian national parks. Visitors find a remote and unspoiled landscape populated by muskoxen, caribou, grizzlies, bison, and more. 1. Haidamari National Park Reserve. 2. Wood Buffalo National Park. 3. Olivec National Park. 4. Nahanni National Park Reserve. 5. Natsicho National Park Reserve. And number 6. Antuktut Naugate National Park. One of the most adventurous things one can do in the Northwest Territories is to drive the Dempster Highway all the way from Dawson City in the Yukon to Tuktoyaktuk on the shores of the Arctic Ocean in the Northwest Territories. Dempster Highway is the Canadian road to the Arctic. And Dalton Highway is the Alaskan road to the Arctic. It is also possible to drive to the far north of Alaska up to the Arctic on the Dalton Highway, the only road to the Arctic in Alaska. Alaska has more wildlife and a greater range of things to do. It is a stunning state with some of the most dramatic coastlines in North America. It is full of wildlife around various coastal areas with large marine life, including whales, seals, and orcas, or killer whales. The forests and coastal areas are also full of brown bears, bald eagles, and other wildlife, wolves and deer. In northern Alaska, one will also find herds of caribou as well as polar bears. Unlike Alaska, the Northwest Territories do not have access to the Pacific Ocean, and so it completely lacks all the dramatic fjord-studding coastlines of Alaska. It does have access to the Arctic Ocean. Alaska is bursting with activities. There is mountaineering up Denali, coastal cruises around the glaciers and fjords, whale watching, seeing brown bears in the wild, polar experiences to the high Arctic, hunting, and much more. Looking to make a trip for the Alaskan experience? There is a greater range of things to see and do in Alaska. It's larger, more diverse, and has more infrastructure. Plan one's trip to the Northwest Territories with the spectacular Northwest Territories website. Visiting the territory is a journey into the grand outdoors. Some activities to expect include camping, watching the northern lights, canoeing, hunting, discovering native cultures, and other experiences. There are still scores of adventurous things to see and do in the Northwest Territories. In August 2021, the Yukon replaced Yukon as the official term when referring to Canada's smallest and westernmost territory. Although it is small, but it is relative when referring to the land of the midnight sun. Consider this: the Yukon is larger than the United Kingdom. It is larger than Germany, larger than Italy, and larger than Malaysia, Sweden, and Morocco. When you factor in the hundreds of millions of people who live in those countries and the fact that the Yukon has a population of just 44,000 sourdoughs, although you gotta earn the right to call yourself a sourdough, you can begin to understand the scale and sheer size of the territory. Factor in soaring mountains and raging rivers, wildlife, tundra, gold rush history and indigenous traditions that date back to the continent's earliest human migration. You begin to realize that the Yukon is not so much a place, it's a state of mind. Now let's talk about 5 incredible reasons the Yukon should be top of your travel list. Bordering Alaska to the west and crossing the Arctic Circle in the north, Yukon Territory is Canada's wild frontier. In summer, you can bask in 24-hour sunlight and you'll catch the northern lights more than 8 months a year. If you haven't already planned a holiday to the Yukon, here are 5 experiences that will convince you to book your flights as soon as possible. Bask under the midnight sun in summer. From June to July, most parts of the northern Yukon see sun for 24 hours a day. And we're not talking about a faint glow, these are full beam rays that illuminate woodland-lined golf courses, rapid rivers and pristine lakes perfect for paddling, as well as backcountry hiking and mountain biking trails for 24 magical hours. National Historic Site Dawson City, a preeminent gold rush hub known for its colorful frontier-style buildings and a public site where you can pan for your own gold in a creek. Head to the Midnight Dome vantage point to watch the sun graze the Klondike Valley around midnight. Continue the evening by enjoying a pint of Yukon Brewing unfiltered wheat ale and a live can-can show at OSO 1900's Diamond Tooth Gertie's. At Shake It Ton Wilderness Camp, just 220 kilometers west of the capital, Whitehorse, you can sit under the bright summer sky by a campfire. With owner James Allen, former chief and a citizen of the Champagne and Aishihik First Nations. Visitors can experience our unique culture and stories of our people, including the spiritual beliefs that have shaped their respected relationship with their land, water and animals. At the camp, visitors can also hike or bike along old mining roads that wind through the mountainous landscape, or simply relax by the private lake. The Yukon's long summer days transform into dark winter nights, a perfect canvas for the bold swirls of green and purple that are painted across the sky as electrically charged sun particles collide with the Earth's magnetic field. Sightings of the northern lights here typically happen from mid-August to early April, though peak viewing conditions are in December and January. Gaze up from inside a luxe glass chalet with floor-to-ceiling windows at Northern Lights Resort and Spa, just 23 kilometers south of Whitehorse. When you aren't looking for the lights, you can shift into relaxation mode with a hot stone massage or over a 3-course meal heroing local ingredients such as salmon and organic herbs grown in the resort's garden. You haven't really experienced a Yukon winter until you've spent some time in the frozen landscape. Spruce trees shimmer in the dense boreal forests, the lakes and rivers look like glass and the mountains resemble white castles as everything is blanketed in ice and snow. At Southern Lakes Resort, just over 100 kilometers south of Whitehorse, you can race over powdery trails and frozen rivers behind a pack of eager sled dogs, follow animal tracks through the forest on snowshoes or skis and rev the engine on your own snowmobile across glistening open plains. The crisp air, the earth-toned rainbow of vivid red and orange foliage, the migration of wildlife getting ready for winter, autumn here is unlike anywhere else. One of the best spots to experience it is Kluane National Park, a vast UNESCO World Heritage Site that is home to Mount Logan, Canada's highest peak. Hike trails that give way to scenic views of a changing montane forest filled with aspen and poplar trees. Keep your eyes peeled for Dall sheep, moose, mountain goats and even grizzlies. Autumn is also a time for berry picking, with blueberries, blackcurrants, cranberries and bearberries all in season. Roam near lakes and rivers and around mossy grounds to find patches. Berries are abundant in nature here. Taste Whitehorse's wild culinary delights. Whitehorse has the region's main airport, and it's a great base for wilderness excursions, but it's also a culinary destination in its own right. Menus have a variety of proteins that are a part of our landscape, such as elk and Arctic char, says Chef Clayton McCall of Klondike Rib and Salmon, a charming eatery with a 19th century pioneer vibe. Inspirations come from as far back as 1898 sourdough starters and eating fish off your gold pan. Given its name, the house special here is no surprise. Maple barbecue salmon served on top of a half rack of smoked pork ribs, garlic mash and roasted veg. Leave room for a slice of bumbleberry pie topped with a generous scoop of vanilla ice cream. Wayfarer Oyster House brings together fresh seafood, oysters on the half shell, or steamed clams and mussels, and fresh flavors, horseradish, lemongrass, dashi and Thai basil. The Spruce Bird Cocktail, featuring gin, ginger, lemon, honey and spruce tip bitters, packs a Yukon forest into a cup. More than 80% of the Yukon is untouched wilderness, meaning driving is the only way to truly get a sense of its beauty and scale. You can even drive all the way to the Arctic Circle via the Dempster Highway, a 740-kilometer unpaved but well-maintained stretch that starts just outside of Dawson City. Winging its way past the jagged windswept mountains of Tombstone Territorial Park and beyond the 66th parallel, which marks the official start of the Arctic. The road is drivable all year. It is maintained during the icy winter months, but one of the prettiest times is early September when the sunlight still lingers and the tundra starts to showcase its fiery fall hues. The Golden Circle route showcases turquoise glacial-fed lakes, snow-capped peaks, and charming Klondike towns on an approximately 568-kilometer loop that travels down to Skagway and Haines, Alaska and back up to Whitehorse, passing the outskirts of the mountainous Kluane region. The Alaska Highway is a road steeped in history and surrounded by beauty, built in 1942 to connect Alaska to the rest of the United States. It took more than 10,000 soldiers working in groups with surveyors to bulldoze the now 2,232-kilometer route in 16-kilometer blocks. Now one of the world's top bucket list journeys, it takes you from the Rocky Mountains in northern British Columbia, through Whitehorse and along the towering Kluane Front Ranges. Thanks for watching, and please share this video to your loved ones.